Welcome to qualitative research methods. We divided into two parts. The first part is qualitative, and the latter part is quantitative. So we're going to start with the qualitative part. In the introduction, we're going to look at the major concepts in research. Okay, so the major concepts in research, we're first going to look at identifying a research problem or a research topic. So what is a research problem? And how do you formulate objectives from a research problem? So by the time you're done with this course, you must be able to understand how to come up with a proposal and do a research. So I'll just follow the content of the course outline so that I may cover as much as I can. So as the first part, we are looking at what? Identification of a research problem and formulation of topic. This is just a preliminary. We also look at how to formulate research objectives and questions and hypotheses, and also using research ethical principles. Then we go into chapter 2, which is our literature review. Then we go to chapter 3, which is our methodology and other concepts that are involved. So what is a research problem and how do we identify our research? Mute yourselves as you join the class. So a research problem is a foundational area in any research study. It guides researchers in understanding or addressing a specific issue. So when you identify a problem, it requires a thorough understanding of what field you want to look at. There should be a gap in the literature that you want to close, and this must be of practical relevance. So researchers must consider how feasible, how relevant, how original, how ethical your research would be, and the implications that they may have in selecting a topic. So those of you at this point who are at the stage of doing your proposals, they must be aligned with your field of study. So formulating a research topic will involve you narrowing it to your field of study and in how you solve a concise problem. So question may arise, what is a research problem? It is simply an issue of concern that a researcher aims to address through a systematic investigation. Now, why are research objectives important? Firstly, we must define research objectives. These are aims that we want to achieve. They're a roadmap for investigation. They must be SMART. By being SMART, we mean they should be specific, measurable, relevant, and time-bound. So objectives must always be SMART. So they must be categorized as general and specific objectives. So research questions must be derived from the objectives. They're the same ones. They will just guide you in your data collection because we use those ones to creating our questionnaires. They must be clear and concise. So what is a research objective? Why are they important? They're important because they provide what? Direction for study during research. That is the use of our research objectives. Okay, so we're going through the contents of our outline. So we go now to our research questions. I've already explained research questions sometimes replaced by hypothesis. So what is a hypothesis? A hypothesis, those who were in my previous class, I explained what a hypothesis is. What is a hypothesis? Bridget? So a hypothesis is simply a tentative statement predicting the relationship that exists between variables. These variables can either be now having no effect or alternative having a present effect. So in qualitative research, assumptions replace hypothesis. So we focus on exploring rather than predicting. So the assumptions or beliefs that we always have whenever we are conducting research, these assumptions will usually shape the research process. They also shape the research findings. So how does a research differ from an assumption? So how does a hypothesis differ from an assumption? A hypothesis is testable, whereas an assumption is just a belief that underpins the research. So there are ethical principles that must be adhered to. So these ethical considerations are very paramount in qualitative research because they protect the participants' rights and also ensure that there's integrity that is adhered to. So some of the principles that we must take note of are informed consent, where all participants must voluntarily agree to part and parcel of the study. Confidentiality and anonymity, where personal information must be protected. Okay, there should be uh, beneficence, okay, where researchers must minimize harm and maximize the benefits of the participants. There must be integrity and transparency, where the findings must be reported as honest as they can without fabricating or manipulation. So this is one part where most of you get to lose marks. Sometimes you want to do research because you don't have time and you don't go into the field. And also respect for participants, where the sensitivity to cultural and social personal differences are ignored. So you must respect the participants and different cultures. All right, so these must be upheld. Now, if I were to ask, why is informed consent important in research? Why do you think there should be informed consent in research? When you want to conduct a research, we are told that as part of ethical norms, there should be informed consent. Why is it important?